And the investigation would like to welcome Governor's representative, Mr. John Regis. And I believe the Lieutenant Governor is in the gallery. Welcome, Lieutenant Governor. The appointees, Mr. David Berger and Tina Azavan. Am I correct on that? Elected officials, dignitaries, and members of the general public. Before we proceed forward with this public hearing, let me first introduce the member of this standing committee. To my right side of the aisle is the floor leader of the Senate, Senator Donald Manglonia from the 3rd Senatorial District, Rhoda. I'm sorry, my apology, from the 1st Senatorial District, Rhoda. And to his far right is Senator Snyder from the 2nd Senatorial District, Tinian. And next to him is Senator Manny Castro from the 3rd Senatorial District, Saipan. And to my left side of the aisle is Senator Ron Calvo from the 1st Senatorial District, Rhoda. And I'm the chairman of this standing committee, Senator Francisco Q. Cruz from the 2nd Senatorial District, Tinian. I would also like to announce a couple of things in the interest of informational purposes regarding code of conduct during this public hearing. Today, the members of this standing committee are conducting a public hearing on the appointment of Mr. David Berger and Tina Azavan to serve as a member of the Board of Directors of the Commonwealth Economic Incentive Authority and to represent the 3rd Senatorial District. The public will be invited, and as well as the entire Commonwealth. The public will be invited to make comments as to whether you support or oppose the appointee before us this morning. However, any comments beyond the facts of the appointee or comments that are not directly related with this hearing will not be entertained, and such comment will be removed from the record. At the same time, please observe minimal noises in disrupting this hearing process, and please turn your electronic to a silent mode. Thank you. Let's now begin. This public hearing is now in session. Today is September 18, 2024 at approximately 9:45 in the morning at the Honorable Supi Ramnas Memorial Building here in the Senate Chamber, Capitol Hill, Saipan. This is a public hearing regarding the appointment of Mr. David Berger and Tina Azavan by Governor Apatang and Lieutenant Governor Mendola to serve as a Board of Directors of the Commonwealth Economic Incentive Authority to represent the Commonwealth. Ms. Jolene Tagabo will be assisting us, the Senior Legislative Assistant. Mr. Terlahi will be our Sergeant at Arms. Mr. Camacho will be in charge with IT. Mr. Elgio Castro will be in charge with our social media. And Mr. Joe Bumudis will be our legal counsel and will all serve accordingly. At this time, I ask Ms. Tagabo to please call the roll.
Senator Ronnie M. Calvo,
Present.
Senator Manny T. Castro,
Mr. Cap.
Senator Francisco Q. Cruz,
Here.
Senator Jude Yohav Schneider, Senator Karina L. Magofnia, Senator Donald M. Manglonia.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, 5 members are present, 1 member is absent.
Thank you, Ms. Tagabo. With 5 members present, we have the necessary number to proceed with this hearing. However, the Vice President of the Senate, Senator Karina Magofnia, is excused. At this time, do I hear a motion to adopt our agenda?
Second.
There's a motion to adopt our agenda and was seconded. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. At this time, I would like to ask Sarge to please invite the appointees and the governor's rep to the chamber. Both appointees, please. Sir, before you proceed forward with your testimony, please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Good morning, Half-a-Days Antiro, Chairman Francisco Q. Cruz, and honorable members of the Executive Appointments and Government Investigations Committee. For record purposes, my name is Jean-Paul B. Regis, Special Assistant for the Administration under the Office of the Governor. On behalf of the Honorable Governor David M. Appointee and the Honorable Lieutenant Governor, Acting Governor Dennis James C. Mendiola, I thank you for the opportunity to appear before you in conducting this public hearing. I am pleased to introduce Ms. Tina Azarvan and Mr. David Berger, the Governor and the Lieutenant Governor's nominee for the Commonwealth Economic Incentive Authority Board of Directors, representing the private sector. Ms. Azarvan possesses an impressive resume that highlights her extensive experience and strong dedication to the private sector. With more than 10 years of experience, she has consistently driven positive changes. She has earned her Master's of Law in Taxation and Juris Doctor degree from the prestigious University of Baltimore School of Law in Baltimore, Maryland. Mr. David Berger boasts an outstanding resume as well that reflects his personal achievements and unwavering commitment to the private sector. With over 30 years, he has made significant contribution to the CNMI as a certified public accountant in both the territory of Guam and the CNMI. He brings a wealth of professional expertise. He holds a Bachelor's of Business Administration degree in accounting from the University of Guam. Governor Appointee and Lieutenant Governor Mendiola, who is in the gallery right now, have complete trust and confidence in Ms. Azarvan and Mr. Berger's nomination to serve on the Commonwealth Economic Incentive Authority Board of Directors. Their profound, extensive professional background, impressive credentials, and steadfast commitment to the Commonwealth make them an exceptional candidate. We are confident that they are prepared to address any questions and share their compelling vision for the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, si Jesus Mosi Zangilisto, for the opportunity to introduce them to this august body.
Thank you, Mr. Regis. And before I recognize the appointees to deliver testimony, I would like to ask both of you to please rise so the legislative assistant can administer the oath. Can you both rise and raise your right hand?
David Berger and Tina Azarvan, you do solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. You may take a seat. I know both of you have submitted all required documents to this standing committee, but if you have anything else that you wish to share this morning, we'll give you the floor, but please, before you proceed with your testimony, state your name for the record. I'm going to start with Mr. Berger.
Thank you, everyone, senators, acting governor. I'm honored to be nominated for this. I've been here in the CNMI for 35 years. As the introduction stated, I'm a licensed certified public accountant, and I do a lot of auditing, a lot of tax returns, consulting work, and you know, my children were raised here, graduates of Mount Carmel. I'm not planning on going anywhere. I'm going to work here until I don't work, and I want to see the CNMI prosper. that's about it.
Thank you,
Hello,
Mr. Berger. I would like to recognize now Ms. Azarban.
My apologies, Mr. Chair. And thank you, everyone, for having me. It's an honor to be here as well. And I know, while I may be relatively new to the CNMI, you know, this is my home. Ultimately, I've never felt more at home anywhere in the world, honestly. I, you know, am originally from Utah, and I have lived a few different places, but this place is very special because of the people, and I think if there's anywhere that you know needs help, it's the CNMI. So it's a true honor to me to be asked to assist with this, because you know the CNMI is not just where I live; it's where I have friends. It's where I have a large portion of my clients, you know, and my clients have families, and I see them all struggling, you know. So that is really my mission here, and I have a background as a tax attorney, you know, but outside of that, I come from a line of entrepreneurs, and, you know, I think I can bring an outside perspective while also respecting the wisdom of everyone in the CNMI that is going to know things that I'm not going to know because I haven't been here forever. But, you know, coming here, I see there are so many opportunities here, especially with the changing politics, and you know, I do think there is hope for the CNMI, and again, I am so honored to be here, and I will give it my everything, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Azarban. And before I recognize the members of the general public to participate, first I would like to invite those that are requested to participate in this morning's public hearing. First on the list, Ms. Vin Armani, President of Trade of Council of the Marianas. And again, sir, before you proceed, please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, honorable senators, my name is Vin Armani. I'm the president of the Trade Council of the Marianas. Today I'll be giving testimony not only in my capacity with the Trade Council, but also as a member of the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors, to which I was appointed by Governor Appointee last week. Today you're holding hearings to review the credentials of 3 nominees today to the board of the Commonwealth Economic Incentive Authority. The Commonwealth Economic Incentive Act, formerly the Commonwealth Free Trade Zone Act, pursuant to 4 CMC Section 51122A, requires that a majority of the board be from the private sector, and that the nominees are to be chosen from names provided to the governor by a Chamber of Commerce as defined in the Act. The Trade Council of the Marianas is a qualifying Chamber of Commerce under the Act, and the nominees that you will hear from today were chosen by the governor from names submitted by the Trade Council. So this morning you will hear from 2 nominees from the private sector, as are sitting next to me, Attorney Tina Azarvan and Accountant David Berger. And in the afternoon, you'll hear from Secretary of Commerce Remedio Mafnas, who is a cabinet-level appointee already confirmed by the Senate to her existing position. Their credentials and experience will stand for themselves, so I'd just like to give a single statement for them all, addressing, most importantly, the significance of this process today to the economic well-being of the Commonwealth. As Senator Jude had mentioned before this, in saying that this is a new organization, I wanted to just kind of start on those points and maybe set the stage a bit from the work that we've done. So I'm going to start with these points, 5 points. Number 1, recent events, including the prolonged economic downturn in Asia, have demonstrated this economy is extremely vulnerable to forces outside of the CNMI's control. Point 2. It is in the best interest of the people of the Commonwealth to take aggressive actions to broaden the CNMI's economic base through diversification. Point 3. The types of businesses, industrial, and commercial activity that are in the best long-term interest of the people of the CNMI are those that require significant capital investment, are low labor intensive, have negligible impact on the environment, and are compatible with tourism. Point 4. In order to entice new economic activity, the CNMI must provide tax and other financial incentives similar to those offered by the United States and other countries internationally. And point 5, it is in the best interest of the people of the Commonwealth to provide incentives in the form of tax relief for desirable businesses establishing operations within designated zones. So these 5 points are not my opinion. They're also not the opinion of the nominees. In fact, the words I just read are taken verbatim from the findings and purpose section of Public Law 1220, then called the Free Trade Zone Act of 2000, but now renamed the Economic Incentive Act, signed into law by Governor Pedro P. Tenorio on September 22nd, 2000. This is almost 25 years to the day of these very hearings. This is an act that created the authority to whose board you are tasked with confirming these nominees. The section where these points were made begins with the words, "The legislature finds," meaning that every member of the House and Senate that voted yes was stating and acknowledging their support of the points above. The yes votes in the House 25 years ago, and if you will please indulge me, I do think this is important to state. Those yes votes were Rep. Martin B. Ada, Rep. David M. Apatang, Rep. Jesus T. Atau, Rep. Oscar M. Babauta, Rep. Diego T. Benavente, Rep. Antonio M. Camacho, Rep. Rosiki F. Camacho, Rep. Florencio T. De Leon Guerrero, Rep. Heinz S. Hofschneider, Rep. Brigida De Leon Guerrero Ichihara, Rep. Alejo M. Mendiola Jr., Rep. Norman S. Palacios, Rep. Thomas B. Pangilinan, Rep. Maria Malua T. Peter, Rep. Stanley T. Torres, Rep. William S. Torres, and the Speaker Benigno R. Fitial. And in the Senate, the yes votes were Senator Joaquin G. Adriano, Senator Ricardo S. Atalig, Senator David M. Singh, Senator Jose M. De La Cruz, Senator Roman S. Guerrero, Senator Edward U. Maratita, Senator Pete P. Regis, Senator Thomas P. Villagomez, and the President of the Senate, Paul A. Manglonia. The names I've mentioned are not just family members, including fathers and grandfathers, even of some of the people in this room, and the nominees that you will be hearing from today, but include current members of this body and the governor who made the nominations. 25 years ago, decades before I even knew anything about the Northern Mariana Islands, it was put into law that it is in the best interest of the people of the Commonwealth to take aggressive actions to broaden the CNMI's economic base through diversification. The authority was created as a tool to pursue that action. So please, honorable senators, keep that front of mind as you speak with the nominees today. These are members of our community, the first in 25 years to step forward of their own volition and without any expectation of financial compensation, ready to finally implement the will of the people. 2.5 decades ago, the leaders of the Commonwealth said that aggressive action was necessary at that time to diversify the economy beyond just tourism and prevent a future financial crisis. I ask that we finally heed their call. These nominees are committed to doing so to the best of their ability. We at the Trade Council of the Marianas are committed to giving them all of the support in their work that is within our power to give. And we ask your support in taking aggressive action without delay to seat these nominees to the Economic Incentive Board and let them begin to do the good economic work on behalf of the people of the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armani. At this time, I'd like to open the floor for public comments. If there's anyone in the gallery wishes to deliver testimony in regards to today's public hearing, you're welcome to come forward and deliver testimony. But before you proceed with your testimony, please state your name for the record. Public comment is now open. Anyone? Once we close public comment, we will not go back to public comment. So no one else. At this time, there's no public comment. I close public comment. And I would like to ask Ms. Tagabel to please disclose letter of support or not in support.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mr. Berger and Ms. Azaran, and members of the general public, in addition to the oral testimony received today on the executive appointment of Mr. David Berger and Ms. Tina Azaran to serve as members of the Commonwealth Economic Incentive Authority, please be advised of one additional written testimony officially received in support of Ms. Tina Azaran from P.K. Daigle, President of the Marianas Business Network. At this time, no written testimonies in opposition to both nominees' appointment have been received by the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Tagabel. At this time, I would like to recognize first the senator from the 13th District, Senator Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, given all our economic challenges, and in fact, looking at the original legislation introduced by Lieutenant Governor Diego T. Benavente when he was a member of the House. This was at a time when we started to see our numbers of tourism, and also at the same time our issues with the federal takeover of immigration and the further decline of our garment industry. I really commend the author and the members of the legislature and Governor Pedro P. Tenorio for this bill. The challenge with a lot of our like we always find in the budget process is usually the enforcement or an implementation of sound bills. So I'm really glad that Governor Appointee has appointed, has made these nominations to fill the vacancies of this very, and finally implement the intent of this public law. I just wanted to thank the two nominees for accepting the role, and this is actually something I always wondered if, and not wondered, but I thought about, and I think we can also take this bill and its creation to the next level, to further reduce a lot of barriers to entry. And given both of your expertise, I look forward to your work in this regard. So now to the questions that I had at hand, is more for Ms. Tina. I think one strategic competitive advantage that you can add to the mix is having a perspective of both different jurisdictions. And the question I wanted to ask you, after being here for a certain amount of time, I know you're able to see the different the business environment firsthand. If there's anything that you would say is one of the root issues that we really need to address in terms of industry getting started, what are those based on your experience?
So that's a great question. And to compare the CNMI to other jurisdictions, I think, the CNMI shortcoming is not in what it can offer, because there is a lot that it can offer. But the shortcoming comes from people don't know about the CNMI. For example, the last American Bar Association mid-year meeting I went to, I went around and asked like 15 different tax attorneys, have you ever heard about the CNMI? And they all said no. And then I said, okay, what about Puerto Rico Act 20 or Act 22, which I can dig into more with you if you want. But they all say yes. People know about that because, if you look up Puerto Rico, what they did, and they didn't do it in the best way because it created a lot of displacement, but they started aggressively marketing their new tax incentives, which brought a lot of people there. People like Logan Paul and a lot of people moved down to Puerto Rico because of these changes, because they aggressively marketed it. But I think, they did it in a way that it hurt the locals, where I think the CNMI can do it in a way that it won't, because Puerto Rico, for example, they faced a housing crisis because people just came in and were like, I can pay whatever for these properties. Here, the covenant makes things very, very special. So I'd say, number one, it's just a lack of people knowing about this place. Because honestly, even as a tax attorney myself, I didn't realize how tax-friendly of a place it was until I incidentally had started getting clients out here for IRS work through referrals from Hawaii. So that's kind of what, caused me to get introduced to this place. But I think if there was more awareness of, promoting, for example, in the US, I haven't been able to find a single territorial taxation class. No one is teaching this kind of information, so people are just not learning it's out there. Because when you look at all 5 US territories, this is the most tax-friendly and cost of living friendly place of the 5. So I think it's that, and then the second component that I think is really hard for the CNMI is the fact that nothing is digital. When I put together my LLC for my law firm being in Maryland, I was able to do it online. not even an hour's time, and start to finish, I have my EIN and I have the business formed. And that's something that is not the same out here. I have recently established a business out here as well, so I've gone through the process. And, I think if we could bring it online, it would attract people because, clients, for example, they can call you and say, I want a company set up in Delaware, and then you can say, okay, here's a person who does that kind of work in Delaware. They go online same day, but that, if we can get the CNMI there, that will get us to be able to bring more people here, because people are not going to be willing to come on a plane, visit it first, and then decide. Sometimes people want to set up the business first, and I know that's a weird way of doing things, but that is just the reality of what I've seen through practice. So if that kind of answers your question in a long-winded way.
Thank you. That you actually answered everything. In fact, you just gave an example of a law that was introduced years ago that required the business process to be digitized. And I know that I was assured that that's going to happen, but with a lot of our private sector help, I know we're further going to ensure that, because the same example, it took me maybe like 3 days to get a business license for a consulting LLC when I wasn't in office in the state of Utah. And that's the same question that I asked our Department of Commerce. The law requires us to digitize that process, but we also have other elements of our agencies, whether it's zoning or others. So that's why I really, to be honest, not to offend my constituents, but we have to think of the bigger picture. Sometimes I actually recommend people to open their business up in Rhoda or Tinian because it's faster. So, but we have to think of a bigger win, right? If we want more BGR, it's better to get them started, and eventually maybe they'll move to Saipan once they're, they start getting. But thank you both for your time, and look forward to working with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Recognize Senator Snyder.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to the nominees, Dave, Tina, Lieutenant Governor, former Secretary, welcome back, and also, of course, SAA, Mr. Regis, and everyone that's watching this coverage. Just quickly, first, I want to thank you both for agreeing to volunteer your time to help each other navigate out of this the downtrend of our island community. Just in passing, in conversation with our constituents, every so often, it's like we're the CNMI basically, even during the Spanish times, believe it or not, I read some extractions of that translation of Revelation, is that we're so far away, where the Manila Galleon sometimes misses the the Mariana Islands at the time, so just keep going until they reach South America or somewhere. They even passed Hawaii maybe, but anyway. So I guess the point is I'm trying to say is we resort to deal with the unfair or the disadvantage of being so far away, even to do business from the west, even to the region 9 for that matter, the western states, Hawaii, and then our best customer base as far as tourism is concerned is literally 3.5 miles. Hours away, which that's kind of like our staple base for over the years. And Dave knows this. He's been around, as indicated earlier. So there's a lot in the legislature that have tried their best. One being, of course, the textile industry. It is really the decision by the powers that be in DC for whoever is advocating that pretty much kind of spelled the demise and give us the the disadvantage to continue on. That's the reason why they cease to exist. Again, we also take some responsibility as to why they started paying attention to that, and then we tried to navigate out of it by continuing with what we got left, which is the generous tax base, like the qualifying certificate, of generous rebate laws, and but still not enough. The islands remain, so to speak, stagnant. And if my number serves me right, I asked the qualified staff here in the Senate to give me a number of what it represents the collection from, let's say, 2010 maybe, about 15 years collection. And we're averaging about $160 million in collections. And our obligation for the public is probably 15, 20, 30 million, sometimes more than that. So there is a problem. It's a systemic problem. Because even if we try to entice businesses to stay in the game, there's obviously a decisions that needs to be made to make that, and a lot of them chose to close and move. So we try the gaming industry. We were in trouble with our pension program at a tune of about 3,000 people that are relying every 15 days. So the leaders at the time decided to explore that option, and it's a great thing because it really salvaged the demise from the entity being and it wouldn't be I can only imagine if it doesn't happen. We're in trouble with the courts. There's a lawsuit in the mix. So, and then of course what happened. And then we had the natural disasters after natural disasters. And I say this with passion that I've never in my wildest dream that I would experience zero tourists coming into the CNMI. And it happened. So having this 12-20 is what was read earlier, and then most recent by the 24th legislature. And maybe I can just throw this question openly and maybe ask, and please don't limit yourself to just tax, even policies that created our Commonwealth. Talk about it, because in order for us to get the guidance, the proper guidance on what we hear, especially from the business sector, if proper an informed decision is made through these halls, I think it will represent better at the end product for our people that we represent. So even to this day, we had to resort to a very critical legislation to try and swim our way out of this period. We're not a fan of putting another debt, but we had to make that decision because the people that we represent rely on us. Whether it's easy direction or not, a decision or not, we don't take it lightly. So, just coming from this side, and I think everyone should agree with this. A happy business community represents a very beautiful gross revenue tax into the revenue tax, and then comes for the projection of the legislature to the legislature. We appropriate it for public programs that now are being compromised because of the lack of revenue. So I really, really appreciate that you both possessing the qualities and the expertise that you guys have, both from Mr. Berger and Ms. Alvazan. Tell me, what can we do? Short term, long term. Share some ideas. There are some legislations in the books that are so antiquated, as what Senator Coster was saying. It's in the books, but it's never enforced, or it's not implemented the right way. So can you please, anyone,
Sure.
allow us,
You want me to go first?
indulge us your expertise. with your
Thank you.
expertise.
Yeah, I'd like to, share some things that are going on and some of the things that I've been trying to get done. So I've been here for 35 years and I've never seen an investment firm on this island. You will get people coming up from Guam, from Raymond James, maybe Merrill Lynch. And, I was wondering, why don't we have investment firms here? And then one day I read an article about a manager of an investment firm or an owner of an investment firm in New York leaving to go to Florida to build an industrial park to attract other investment firms out of New York into Florida. Well, why is that? Because New York has state, county, and city taxes. Florida has no state tax. So I sat there and I said, okay, these are investment firms. They make their money on trading securities, and they're going to a place because it's only federal tax and no state tax. And I thought, well, can we beat that? Heck yes, we can beat that. So I did talk to former Senate President. We had an election, so we have a change. But we need to change our BGRT law. Because just imagine, you buy 100 shares of this company stock, fine. You sell it under our current BGRT law. If you're doing a lot of volume, you're going to pay 5% of that selling price as BGRT. Well, you don't always make money on selling a stock, and you don't always make even 5%. So my proposal that I brought up was, let's just aggregate all the gains and losses during the month. If you have a net gain, pay BGRT on the net gain, not on every single sale. So I really want that change in law to happen. Then we can reach out to investment firms and say, why don't you just park a tiny piece of your portfolio here? Put a person on a computer at a desk, do your trades. Say you move 10 million over here and do your trades and you make whatever you make on it. Okay, year's over, this is the full tax that you paid. Do you like it? Is it better than Florida? Is it better than New York? So I want that to happen. Now, I don't want to name names of, because there's confidentiality, but one of the companies that is looking to do business here, I met with them and I said, why? They have operations in California. I said, why do you think that this is better for you? And they gave me 5 reasons. Okay, so one of the reasons was the tariffs that were put in place, by the president. Sure. But they also said, maybe we don't think of it as an advantage, but the fact that we have access to CW workers, and if we can get that expanded and extended, like is trying to be done right now, they're in California paying union wages to people, and paying a fair wage to somebody out here, whether it's CW or not, it's going to be cheaper than California, for sure. We have our already existing tax system, which is good. If they want to get a qualifying certificate or come into our Commonwealth Economic Incentive Authority, they can have a very good tax situation. Now they also mentioned Jones Act exemption. They source their materials from Asia. Their customer base is US and Canada. So if they can come here, do what they have to do, send it to North America, and get the raw materials here cheaply, or cheaper than they would have to if it was a US flag vessel, it makes sense to them. And then the last one was business regulation. In California, the things that they are required to do by the government absolutely would not happen here. Like checking exhaust emissions of the trucks bringing parts to your factory, having to weigh the trucks bringing the parts, that's what they face right now. And if they don't do it, they get fined. So, you know, I don't see that kind of stuff happening in CNMI. Just recently, you know, we're busy all the time in my office, which is great because we do work all over Micronesia. But, you know, we're walking around going, you know, what's going on? What's going to happen? What's the future? And getting a little, you know, discouraged. And then we start to see these people that want to come here and do manufacturing. Great, let's promote this. Secretary Ray yesterday, Ray Yumo, came to my office and he said, hey, you know, I was on an airplane. I met this guy. Here's his business card. We talked. Reach out to him. So I did. And he's with a wealth management company, so from Japan. And, you know, they have a lot of wealthy clients. Some of them have assets in Guam at the moment, maybe in CNMI, I don't know. So I reached out to the guy thinking, you know, if it's wealth management and assets, this falls into that thing with selling investments. I'd love to see that happen here. But he emailed me back and he said, you know, yeah, let's set up a virtual meeting. You know, one of my clients has a brother that's in I guess, manufacturing in Taiwan, and he wants to take a look at maybe doing business in the CNMI. So you never know, random sitting next to a stranger on an airplane, you never know what it could lead to. But, you know, I love to work. I'd love to see more business come to the CNMI. You know, when I got here, we had a 95% tax rebate across the board, and that got changed in 1995 to the current 90/70/50. It's still a very good incentive, you know. And I'm just all about let's get more good, legal, you know, compliant businesses to come here. So there's a little bit of optimism. Things are happening.
Thank you, Dave. And I appreciate the comment on the 5 items, which really, you know, it represents what we have. And I'm glad that you mentioned the CW access to that. And I think we're hearing some traction. I don't want to say it officially yet because, you know, we're just hearing. But the obvious is 2029. That's the cutoff. But I think we all should jointly work together, business and government, to come up with a single voice and represent it via our delegate's office, so that we can have a general understanding with where we're headed to, given with what with our challenges. Ms. Avrazan, would you? I'm sure you come up with
Sure.
You know, you have a lot of great ideas that you can share. Even like, for example, if it's not legally permissible, go ahead and share what do you think about the tax structures here that things need to be take a look at.
Sure, absolutely. So, you know, one thing I have brought up proposing about the BGRT is changing it from not from monthly payments, but changing it to mirror how the IRS handles FICA payments, where you're either paying bi-weekly or monthly, but you only have to file quarterly. So doing something like that, which will free up the division and also make it less frustrating for businesses, because I will admit, coming from the States, it's really frustrating filing BGRT because we don't have to do that in Maryland. You know, so I have to do that obviously on my income that's sourced here. And going through that process, it wasn't easy at all, because it goes from, okay, you know, you're doing your quarterly filings to now every month on top of these other filings. So I'm filing about 20 tax returns a year for the business.
How's the line at the filing place?
Oh,
when you wanna
in
file?
Maryland?
No, here.
I mean, the fact that you can't do it online is difficult, but, you know, and then you go in there, there's very long lines and all of that kind of stuff. That's why I think it would be better quarterly, but kind of going into some ideas beyond the Tariffs and Jones Act, because that is a huge opportunity right now. You know, I'd say one of the biggest is that. But short term, and also thinking beyond just, you know, big businesses is also people like me that, I paid tax. My income tax is sourced to where I live. When you're a single member LLC, you're disregarded for income tax purposes. So even though it's a Maryland LLC, it's here that's getting the income tax. And it's a remote law firm. We have employees out of Maryland, and we represent clients, even in Puerto Rico, Guam, a lot of different states. And the benefit comes here. So finding people that are able to work remotely, because when you look at the data, there is like a mass exodus of people that are relocating to places like Bali, Singapore, Taipei, Hong Kong. But what happens, let's say you move from LA to Bali. Guess what? You never broke your domicile in California, where California is still going to come after you for that state tax, and you still pay the IRS. But you know what? I travel a lot. But I still live here. I'm still a statutory resident, so you guys get the tax, and I still can go to Bali. It's a win-win, but people don't know they can do that. So they're going and relocating, paying all this extra money they don't need to, where you can literally come here, save the money, and, I feel like you live a better quality of life being here as well. So I think promoting this place to digital nomads is something that is so, so essential, because we might not be billion-dollar businesses, but it is still, for most digital nomads, it's going to be tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax revenue that is coming into the CNMI. So that is, one in the short term of something that you could use social media like immediately, because that's all it really comes down to. Like, you don't have to be going and traveling around and promoting it in person. You can be back on your phone promoting the CNMI on TikTok or Facebook Reels or whatever you watch. So really trying to bring awareness to digital nomads that they can come here, save money for their business, live a better life. It's a win-win. I've done it myself, so I can attest to it. It was like the best decision, because now I can live a better quality of life instead of being like, wow, where'd all my money go? Oh, taxes, So that's just one area. But there are other industries that, I think are really big opportunities. Something that I have tried to bring up with the Cannabis Commission previously and everything is the fact that the federal government, they are looking at reclassifying Schedule 3. Trump's already alluded. He said, I've never seen something wrong with, medical marijuana, but he did specify medical, which indicates, that it would be reclassified. And when that happens, those big, like Pfizer level, marijuana companies, they're going to be looking to where they can be growing outside of the places they already are, which largely is California, where, a low wage in California, you're paying someone $20 an hour, but then you have sales tax, you have property tax, you have like tax to breathe in California, basically, where here there's no transfer tax, there's no sales tax, there's no property tax. The prevailing wage is much lower. There's the CW program. There's no cap on the HB1 visa too. Like, there's all these opportunities. The drawback is the shipping speeds, sure, but you're also paying the same rates. And once the reclassification occurs, that's something that I really think this place, and I was told it was really far away, but Trump brought it up like a month ago. So I do think it is something that eventually will take place, because there seems to be a lot of support. There are going to be some people not supporting it, but I think originally it was introduced by the DEA, and when it gets reclassified to Schedule 1, for example, like, it would be more difficult to mail like Adderall or something than it would to mail marijuana, as crazy as that sounds. That's a huge opportunity.
So, one of the things that the question, I think it still pops up, and I've yet to get a clear, well, at least, I don't know the other members of the Senate, but, one of the driving force behind me supporting the Cannabis Commission or Cannabis Bill, now it's law, is, we always think the three islands, right? Now we're thinking up north with Northern Islands, but one of the things that I asked in the past is how are we going to make this work within the CNMI, if that, right? I mean, it's because they're very careful. Even the tourism industry, they're very careful in the marketing aspect of it, because some of our target markets. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's permissible. It's not permissible. So. Yeah. Anyway, so can you? Okay, so that's two, right? Short term. What's the third one?
So
I mean, I'm sure there's many, but
And just one point of clarification with the marijuana, I'm not saying to market it to the tourists, but to export it to the mainland. Because then, you know, you have the low cost of wages, the low cost of cultivating it, and then sending it.
Yeah, because
So-
one of the things that sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's it's
Very illegal.
classified.
Yes.
It's not declassified yet, or still in the class 1, right? By the federal government
It's, yeah, so
right
it's
now.
a class
So
one.
that means it's prohibited from traveling in the federal
Yes.
waters, so to speak. So even like, for example, as close as Tinian, there's some
Yeah.
federal waters there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think you know where I'm getting to. So,
Yeah.
anything else, ma'am? That,
Yeah. So that would all be after the reclassification, because I know that's all regulated by Congress. We couldn't do anything until after, but you can be contacting these companies now to make them aware of the CNMI as an option for them, because they're definitely already, you know, going out and looking, oh, okay, are we going to grow here or here? You know, let them at least consider the CNMI and promote
Sure.
it. But, you know, it's definitely something you cannot do it now. That is very, very illegal. So just to clarify.
Okay.
And then just kind of going back to, you know, the Jones Act, the tariffs, all of that, you know, I think, as you know, he mentioned, the opportunity is you can be bringing things in from Asia, then, you know, you complete your product, do what you have to do, and you're bringing it to the mainland. I think that's amazing because we're so close to China, and that's who's getting hit the hardest really with tariffs.
Agree.
You know, so I think if we focus on those three main things, and then also, just to add a fourth, sorry,
No,
one other thing I do want to mention, you know, because when I went to American Samoa, I remember being shocked. I never realized Star-Kissed tuna is from American Samoa, because I was like, wow, I grew up eating this, you know, and it's all over the world. You know, I feel like we have a lot of natural resources just based on the fact that you can go, you know, fishing and all of these, and like making more of an industry, because that is one of their biggest industries that is stimulating the economy in American Samoa. And, you know, again, that's just one component, but I don't think we should put all our eggs in one basket. You know, I think we need to diversify as much as possible, because we've seen what happened from COVID, you know, and we've seen what happened with, you know, the changes the federal government made, and when China entered the World Trade Organization, that obviously pummeled the garment industry. So I do think it's important to, you know, be doing multiple things separate from each other as well. So.
Not to be political, but that was during the Clinton administration, right? When they opened the
Yeah.
right. I mean, you seem to know your history, so
Yeah.
the WTO. So.
Yes.
No pun intended, guys. So I just, this is a perfect opportunity to discuss about this because it really put a dent on. I remember I wasn't in the legislature then, but I remember when it was huge. You know, they went from Northwest Airline coming like almost twice a day here with the big 747 with a heavy belly to today. I mean, we don't have to go very far. So, I mean, I don't blame them for not coming here because they go where it's more profitable. So we're still trying to figure that out after 20, right? Yeah, I think it's 25 years. So, ma'am, and maybe Dave, you've been here a while. So, is there, the other day I was in Tinian and I was at this public meeting with PSS because PSS is going around trying to get support or, to them they're notifying their people that, because of the budget situation, they may do this and that. And there was a Q&A portion of it. And one brave citizen got up and really spoke publicly and say, we can't always rely on the legislature and trying to find the funds to match what we need.
Yeah.
Maybe we can start looking at levying some fees on some properties that are very minimal. She made it very clear. But I say this because it's already a conversation that's being made. And I know that, and by the way, I'm not a proponent of, taxing unless, I can be convinced over and over and over again. But I feel like we should be doing something else. So what do you think about that? How should we craft and debunk that idea and be able to survive?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I do think there are other taxes, if absolutely necessary to impose, that can be imposed in lieu of a property tax, Because, you know, property tax, all that's going to do is be another expense for people that are already struggling.
And that's the reason why, that's the principle behind why they're always passing it to the consumers.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, one type of tax that you guys don't have that, you know, is kind of a one-off is a transfer tax, which is something you guys could think of where it would only be under certain circumstances of if it's like, you know, if you're transferring to a spouse or like through, you know, death or anything like that, it wouldn't be applicable, but essentially you could have like a 1 to 3% tax on the fair market value of real property, but only a one-time when you're selling it.
Okay.
So just that, you know, is in lieu of property tax. But I do think an annual property tax is just something that becomes a burden to people. And then, you know, it kind of creates the issue of something horrible they do in Maryland is if you don't pay your property tax in time, they will try to foreclose on your home and sell the property tax liability, and someone will literally evict you from your home. So like, I don't ever think it's good to go down that property tax route, because then it can lead into tax sales, which disproportionately affect people who literally can't afford to pay the tax, and then they're losing their home. So that's my view on it. But.
All right, great. Thank you. And I'll take that very seriously. Now, this question is a very important question for many of us, even to especially to our constituents. Because we are really a consuming region. We consume a lot. We don't really produce. We want to get to the other side or maybe match up.
Yeah.
Do you agree that if we try to, in any region, like even in the U.S. state, like I mean U.S. Lower 48, that when we generate income within and we spend it within, it helps the economy, right?
Yes.
Right?
To
Makes sense,
bring the
right?
money in and spend it here
Yeah.
instead of spending it outside?
Right.
Absolutely, yes.
So I know this is, and I want to ask guidance from you guys, okay?
Sure.
Oh, so do you agree that all the funds that are being exported now have already been taxed?
All of the funds that have been exported now.
Yeah, like being remitted out. Do you believe that all of them that's being remitted have been taxed already?
Probably
Here?
not.
Probably
No.
not.
Probably not, because there's, you know, I think one shortcoming with this place is there's not enough enforcement to be checking on those things.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so I got a statistics from Commerce, and I'm going to ask this question to Remy when she gets in this afternoon. It's about $46 million second quarter been exported already. It's a lot of money
yeah.
from here. So I trying to wrap my head around how can we survive with that amount of money leaving the CNMI, not being circulated here, and it's never going to come back. So you guys are the experts of this. How can we, you know, without whatever, right?
That's one reason that I think not just bringing in businesses, but like bringing in, you know, physical people that are going to be living here, you know, because I now, when I'm buying groceries, obviously I'm buying it from the grocery store here, or if I go get a haircut, I'm paying a business here to go get my haircut, you know. So I think there is a declining population here, and you have to like physically bring more people here. And I think the types of people you're going to be able to bring are people who are able to work from home already, because there are honestly not a lot of job opportunities here. And I think that's, you know, another issue that creates it. But yeah.
Wonderful. And I'm gonna, maybe you, Dave, want to say something about this?
I'm not totally up to speed on the big beautiful bill. There was, I forget how many pages of tax law in there, like 140, 160 pages. I tried to make a summary of it. My summary is 16 pages long. But in the big beautiful bill, there's a 1% tax on remittances. I don't know, you know, how do we translate that into CNMI, but we're on a mirror image basis. It's a U.S. law, so I would expect that we would impose that.
Yes. You know what? I try to do that, Dave. You know, and bless his soul, you know, he's no longer with us. Representative Blanco, I use his bill because constitutionally I'm not allowed to drive a revenue-based bill here, so I use this as a vehicle bill. And really, and I know in plain reading or in just a general understanding, it may be unfair because they're really targeting the working class and all that. But no, if we make them understand that in any region that we travel, you go to Asia, you go to somewhere, even our regional islands, they always have this special fees for visitors or workers or non-citizens. So I'm not targeting them. I'm just wanting to help our community here, because really it's the ones that are staying here get to go through all these challenges, you know, and that's the reason why we're coming up with all these ideas. Not to insult anybody, it's just trying to do what we can to survive at the least impactful to the people that are staying here. You know, that's my job. That's why I point at all these. Sometimes, if some people feel that it's sensitive, then I understand. But I feel like it's our duty to kind of watch over. So, you know, I asked this, and you don't have to have all the answers today, but I'm going to be reaching out to you guys for guidance, you know, because, you know, it's really painful every time we come here and we look at the demand of the public programs that we need, and we don't have an answer to it. We have to, you know, we have to cut hours of our people sometimes, and that's, you know, cutting the size of the government. Last but not the least, can one of you talk on the cover over taxes, as far as like how does that work, and how is that an advantage to us? Knowing that there's a lot of federal contractors right now, you know, hence the projects continuing.
Well, I'll try to answer. I mean, I'm doing work for some of these big companies that are doing work in Tinian, and so, you know, I've personally gone up to Rev and Tax and given millions of dollars in BGRT.
That's the representation of the one I was referring to.
Well, it's you know, a company that's
Sure.
big company doing a project
You
in
don't have to
Tinian.
name the names, but I
Yeah.
think so. So we're doing okay with that as far as.
Yeah, I saw that comment where like someone was saying only $87,000 or $89,000 was paid in. I don't know if they were referring to some different kind of tax, because seriously,
It's probably
I've paid like $3 million to Rev and Tax in the last 12 months.
You know, Dave, when the construction tax was being circulated here, I even asked, why do that when we already have the developer's tax? Why not increase the developer's tax? You know, because it's really simple, simpler to really read, and it's really there. And then, you know, obviously, you know, that didn't happen. So I was reading the origin of the enabling statute when it became law, the developer's tax, which is now at 2% for many, you know, developer qualifying. And then I saw the message by the governor at the time signing it into law, and I think it was the late Governor Lorenzo de Leon Guerrero, and he wanted 7%, but he signed it at 2%. So just fun facts, you know, the history of that. So I don't want to finish the conversation today because you're the first two that we are hearing, and I'm sure that others are going to hear a lot more. But I really appreciate that you guys are volunteering your time to help us navigate out of this. And we don't know everything, but we know we can certainly help with some of the stuff that we know. And
More business coming in, doing business here, more jobs, more taxes.
when the businesses are happy, everything follows, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry for my time, but I'm gonna yield back. I promise I will not ask for second chance this time. So, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fernandez. I think you took the whole morning, but I appreciate other members for being patient. Recognize Floor Leader Mangonia.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Berger, Ms. Azarvan. You know, we've heard from the colleagues that spoke before me that this law, which was signed in 2000, was pretty much, you know, nothing has happened since then, and it was through the work of Mr. Armani and the chamber that it was revived, and that, you know, there's really not much that we can press you on about what plans may come out of it, other than having the board to you know, getting confirmed and organized and figuring out what challenges there are so that the legislature can also really look into it and see how we can promote the mission of the council or the body. Thank you, Mr. Berger, for the 30 years that you've contributed to the Commonwealth. So I think more of my questions will be focused on Ms. Azarvand. And so if I may ask, when did you move into the CNMI?
So I moved here officially in May 2024, and I've been coming back and forth since January 2023 is when I started. That was like my first visit, though, and then I'd come like every 3 months, but I didn't live here until May 24.
Okay, and since moving here back in May, I'm looking through your resume. It doesn't indicate anything about being established here in the CNMI, but I do see your statement of financial interest and that you do have a current license pending, but since moving here, have you established any business since then?
Oh, the current, yes. So I did establish a business here, and I think it was maybe about 2 weeks ago that it was official. But I have the license now since that. But yes, I haven't started operating it yet, though.
So you've only had a business since 2 weeks ago? Is that what I'm
So this is
understanding?
a separate business. I've had my law firm. I originally established the LLC for my law firm in July 2022. But I am, so to explain, I am licensed in Maryland and DC. So I decided for a variety of reasons to keep my business based in Maryland. So it's a Maryland LLC. Obviously, for income tax purposes, it's disregarded. I pay my income tax here and my BGRT. But because of and the rules were recently changed on the bar, but you know, when you're running a business, you can't take off time as if I just graduated law school to retake it. So I do plan to get barred here, but I did not want to expand in anything past tax. And under the rules, I'm allowed to practice tax law, so I just kept it established under Maryland just because of the way the process is coming out here as a lawyer and then coming out here to establish a business. It was just a lot better to keep it based in Maryland. So I do have a Maryland-based business, but
Okay.
I'm a digital nomad, so I work
Okay.
from home essentially.
And aside from the businesses, what other contributions have you made towards the community or the CNMI or Saipan in general?
Yeah.
Since being here.
So one of the first things I had brought up, I believe it was in May 2024 that I brought it up, was the fact that a lot of people couldn't afford assistance with tax liabilities. So I had approached my alma mater, University of Baltimore, and then the Division of Revenue and Taxation, and we put together a tax clinic to provide pro bono services. So my law school essentially subsidized the trip, flew people out, and we provided assistance to about 90 taxpayers throughout the course of that clinic. And another thing I recently did was a few months back, I had launched a scholarship program for people to submit their ideas on economic recovery. And that was just something, you know, we did as a firm separately. It was, I think, $3,500 total, and it was 5 or 6 scholarships. So anyone in middle school, high school, or college was able to submit. And then we did give out those scholarships. So I would say those are the two biggest things. You know, I do provide pro bono services at my discretion, you know, as long as they meet the same criteria the IRS sets. So that's probably where my other biggest focus is in terms of, you know, giving back to the community. But yeah.
And the business that you said you got the license for 2 weeks ago, is that for the one that you indicated as pending on your statement?
Yes.
Okay. And the reason I bring up these questions is because, you know, if we get approached by our constituents and they ask us who this person is, you know, those are not a lot of the stuff that you're mentioning right now is listed on what we have on file, which may become public record. But even so, you know, the question of, do you truly represent the private sector in terms of what you've contributed thus far since coming here into the CNMI, and is that going to be a true representation of the Saipan community, because that's truly the sector you're representing? Is that correct? And so, while we value the experience and expertise you bring, I just wanted to kind of shed light on how would you approach someone who may have issues of your appointment, being that you've only been established for a year, or you've only resided in the CNMI for a year, and have a business established in the past 2 weeks? How would you, explain to someone that you have the qualifications and this is what you're contributing and this is what you planned, or this is what you're hoping for, or envision for this council?
Yeah, and great question. And I know, I am new to the area, and admittedly, if I knew about the CNMI sooner, I probably would have moved here sooner. But that business is unrelated to my law practice and everything. And I have been representing clients before the IRS here probably since by February 2023. So I have been doing a lot of work, and as a tax attorney, you become intimately familiar with what your clients' operations are and their financial situations are. So, while I know I'm not going to understand everything about the CNMI, I wish I could, but that's, where you guys come in and where I would come to you guys for guidance. But what I bring is an outside perspective. This is, not the first place I've lived. I've lived in Utah, I've lived in North Carolina, Maryland, Florida, and, that was for work, relocated me, school, and where I'm, born and raised as well, and I came from Florida. So I, lived in those places. I studied abroad in Curacao, so I've gotten to see, what attracts people to a place for business purposes and what, deters them. And I think that's where my benefit comes in, is as an outsider of, I can say, hey, why don't we do things this way? There's a really cool way they do it in Delaware or Kentucky or wherever it may be. So I think what some people may see as my biggest weakness of being an outsider can be my biggest strength, because I acknowledge that, like I said, I'm not going to know everything. I will come to, the legislator for help. I will come to the private sector and everything when I don't understand something, because I know that will be my shortcoming, but yes. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Again, we're just trying to shed light on, some of the issues that may come up from your appointment or Mr. Berger's appointment. But I guess maybe if confirmed, what do you hope to see within the first few months of the board being organized and the plans moving forward within the next year?
So that's a great question. I think the first thing we would want to start with is doing a comparative analysis of every other policy we think may work here and figure out if it actually will work here or will not. So obviously this is something that's not funded. So something that I've pre-drafted, assuming I, am confirmed to this position, is a fellowship program for unpaid legal interns, essentially, to help with the research of, looking into these different programs, because, there's all these different types of programs. For example, Japan doing 1 yen homes, and not saying to do homes, but for the properties that are abandoned, looking, should we implement a policy like that to address all of the abandoned properties that are just continuing to be destroyed, and just kind of doing the research and coming up with a game plan together, number one, and then also actively marketing it, to businesses and to digital nomads alike. So using social media and using different types of trade associations, of what is a type of industry that would greatly benefit from the CNMI. And once we're all on the same page there, we find those types of associations, because, different industries have different, associations. So there's the American Cider Association, for example. That's for people who are in the cider business, finding, when we all agree on what those target markets are, contacting them and marketing through the associations, not going and physically trying to shake hands, but doing everything digitally, because that is the fastest way to do it as well. So.
Mr. Berger, something you want to add to what you plan to bring as the board gets organized and everything is settled with the confirmations?
Well, over the last couple of days, I reread the public law a couple of times, and we're supposed to come up with an executive director, which is a full-time position. We're also allowed to have staff. We've got to figure out how we're going to carry out our responsibilities. Right now, I don't see that there's any funding. I'd like to get all the board members together and talk about how we're going to make this thing happen, how we're going to find funds to hire an executive director, because that person's responsibility is to aggressively market the CNMI. In the meantime, on a daily basis, I'm doing whatever I can to attract investors to the CNMI, and explain the tax benefits. We need to get everybody who's going to be confirmed, get them on the board, call a meeting, and start to do what's in the public law, what our responsibilities are.
I mean, essentially, this may be a funded board, right? According to the public law established back in 2000, the board will submit a budget to the governor, and it'll be on the governor's discretion to fund it. But how would you distinguish what your roles would be versus what CETA is currently doing, or what the potential of CETA would have versus what your role would be in this council?
That's a very good question, because in fact, one of these entities that's considering doing business here, we just had an online meeting yesterday, and they want me to do a full comparison of, tell me about the QC, tell me about the Commonwealth Economic Incentive Authority. What are the benefits? What are the requirements? So I do plan to do that analysis and share that with the board members. There are pluses and minuses on both sides.
Ms. Arzarvan, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I just agree with him.
Yeah, because now just thinking about it, this may be looked at as a duplicative effort with CETA, right? And so how would you distinguish what your role is, or what your plans would be, and how that would be separated from what CETA's role is?
Yes, so good question. I do think both should meet on occasion, because obviously there is some overlap, it seems, but not really. But our role is more to promote the CNMI, where their role is to approve the QC process, the QC, go through that process. So, they're more focused on that. We're more focused on, the marketing of the CNMI. So we would be focusing on things like social media, reaching out to these types of opportune businesses that would be ideal for the CNMI, whereas they're kind of there. My understanding with them is, they're more there for the QC process, which is underutilized, but that is, completely separate from this, and they do have separate terms on that. So, but I do think they should meet, or we should meet on occasion. So,
All right. Thank you both for your responses. At this time, I yield, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Floor Leader. Recognize Senator Calvo.
Thank you, Chairman. And we'd like to welcome Tina. I'll use the first name, Tina and Dave. Thank you so much. Pretty much as it rounds up to the last person in the Q&As, a lot of the questions have been inquired on and asked. It's just amazing, and I thank you both for the opportunity and taking this on behalf of the, governor as nomination. Governor David Apateng, Lieutenant Governor Dennis Mendiola, for that nomination on this, revamping, reviving the CETA and the process. And both of you have, looking at the background, aside all, public accounting, and that's one of the major components in this entire movement. And then the taxation process, and I know our fiscal affair personnel with that in notion, and how we can use taxation in a way that will help represent the people, where we're, you know, the monies are, you know, being reinvested back into the community. A lot of great conversation with the, you know, here, I was gonna ask, with your professional background and experience, what contributions can you offer that would benefit CETA? And you pretty much were sharing your personal professional roles, and then what benefited that, and your skill sets, have it in the resume. And another thing, what are some of the top priorities in once you get confirmed on the board? So you share that organization, you know, it's like that part whole professional concept. Now, Tina, you shared, just reflecting off of the conversation, you know, I see you as an adamant, you know, let's share it to the world concept, you know, let's open the doors to the global economy as far as, you know, certain things that you can, and working from home that deals with social media and garnishing and the benefits that we have, and to learn from other foreign, you know, islands and territories, that the pros and cons, what will best work for the Commonwealth, and that expertise. It's great that you reflect off of the difference, what is being practiced in Maryland, what is being practiced in California, the pros and cons that we can accept and benefit from. So sometimes thinking outside of the box, your experience on another state or territory, you know, bringing that expertise to the table, you know, attracting from foreign to domestic investors, small businesses, you know, keeping them afloat. I like the term that Dave, you gave in regarding to net versus BGRT, you know, the net gains, because you got the gross revenue, but you also have your debt services. And so the net is very important to, you know, you can't just give everything, and then when it comes to the debt, we're going to be struggling, and then the next round, you know, that's coming along the way, you know, and the different, what you call it, I'm always taking quick note. Diversification is one key element, and both of you represent that diversification in regards to your testimony. Is there also, what do you think, you know, I mean, do you have anything else that you feel for this CETA right now as biggest challenges to overcome for the Commonwealth, other than what you have mentioned, you know, in regards to being a board member? Any other things that may pop, you know, like the light bulb clicks, or you pretty much exhausted your resources as far as sharing, you know?
Well, you know, both the QC program and this Commonwealth, that used to be the Free Trade Zone, the Commonwealth Economic Incentive Authority, they both have good things to offer. And, you know, this is a small community. You know, in fact, my firm audits CETA. So, you know, I know the people there. I know what they do. I've done 4 QCs already, and I'm doing 2 more now for these people that want to come in. So, you know, there's that program. Great. We have now this vehicle that we can promote. And actually, I think the Economic Incentive Authority program is better than the QC program as far as what are the obligations that are attached to it. Yeah, so I mean, I have to do my full analysis, but I think we have a really good vehicle that we can use to attract people here, to attract businesses.
Dave, thank you for that quick note. Tina, anything to comment regarding?
No, I mean,
challenge?
I definitely think there are ways to, you know, improve all parts of this. Obviously, we've talked about marketing the programs, and the qualifying certificate is also something that wasn't marketed. They're, you know, both great programs, but I think working hand in hand, I think there should be a lot of collaboration with CETA and SIA, because they have the same end goal, which is to help fix the economy. So I think, you know, taking both and promoting both is, you know, what's going to give this place hope. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. And I know I like because I saw the documentary on, this is regarding Tina, when you were mentioning Puerto Rico, right? And all the wonderful incentives, but then
Yeah.
like for us, the Marianas descendants, what benefit does it have to offer? So those are the likes and dislikes, and I wouldn't say loophole or what, I don't know what terminology. So it's great to infuse that diversification and hoping that both of your expertise will help fill in the gaps and safeguard the Commonwealth so that we can start generating money. I'm pretty excited for you too, and we hope that deliberation is positive, and we look forward to, the uprise of the economy with the other board members that we choose to nominate and elect. Thank you so much for your acceptance, and I turn it over to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Calvo. Recognize Senator Castro.
First, I just want to thank you for saying no to property tax.
Hey.
I know our chairman too was looking at Senator Jude with the eye because
It was a test?
I don't think it was a test for him, but but we'll leave Senator Jude to talk about that. But I want to also thank Mr. Vin back there and Mr. Dave. During my time in the House, we had a good discussion about the same concept with BGR and the history of how things came about in regards to things like capital gains tax and all of that. And what I think is really important, and I really hope that you guys would consider because we need it, is to serve as adjunct instructors at the college. Because even, sometimes we have, people can have a degree in law but, they haven't studied the covenant. They haven't studied things that are relevant to this specific community that also puts us at a disadvantage, right? So, I'm even looking at mandating some kind of a covenant test for anyone coming into the CNMI to work at the Attorney General's office, or it should be in part of the process somewhere, because there's a lot of differences. Sometimes I hear people talking about things, but they're not looking at the covenant agreement and history in general. And I really appreciate the conversation about BGR. When the Department of Finance was in here for the budget hearing, I was asking them about that, because we have other jurisdictions, which I know your firm serves, Mr. Dave, like Palau, that moved from BGR to Palau Sales and Service Tax. But it was implemented, I think, the same year this bill, around 2000. I mean, it was introduced around that early 2000s, but never implemented until the current president came in, for the most part. And that's one thing I always wondered. Even my recent bill that passed, thank you to our members of the Senate and the House and Governor Appointee for signing a bill to amend the Recycling Act of 1999, which basically, it doesn't look like a lot, but it actually, it can help reduce the costs, reduce the prices of our things like beverage containers, everything, right? Rather than taxing people, we implement advanced disposal fees, and when you redeem those items, you get deposit back, kind of like our beverage containers. But I just like something as simple as a beverage container coming into the port. You have excise tax, beautification tax, container tax. Then it goes to the wholesaler. You have BGR. From the wholesaler, it goes to the retailer. The retailer pays BGR. But the question is, maybe some of those retailers are underreporting. So if we had these advanced disposal fees in place, you can eliminate a lot of those taxes that really kind of like penalize people that are not responsible for the litter via taxing. It can reduce the cost of consumer goods, right? Like, so if we eliminated some of those taxes at the port, the wholesaler can reduce its price. At the same time, we can make the price of alcohol or soda closer to what it's being sold at the Army Exchange. Then you get more people going to their local grocery store and buying items rather than, just not paying anything into it. But sorry, I know I'm going into a rabbit trail on that issue, but I even thought of, maybe we can take this economic incentive zone a step further and just eliminating some of the permitting that, like bulk it. Like, all agencies responsible for permitting for this designated area, we're going to do the zoning, historical preservation, all those one shot. So when they come in, it's plug and play, pretty much ready. So that's just some food for thought I wanted to ask that you guys look into. And I know that, you guys are all credentialed, experienced individuals that will probably be thinking the same thing. That's pretty much all I had for you guys. I really enjoy. I'm also thinking maybe we should. The reason why I really encourage you guys to get with NMC and start teaching, if possible, just like how the tourism they had this tour guide certification class, because the tour guides were just making up history. And that required the legislature to start mandating that all the tour operators, tour guides go through a tour guide certification process, which involve history. And you wonder why tourists are just going up to residents and like when our local residents are just picnicking on a Sunday and tourists just go up and grab whatever they want. It's because the tour guide told them, like, yeah, local people are really nice. Just go there and invade their space, right? So it sounds funny, but these kind of things were happening, hence why the legislature enacted that legislation to and my stepmother was a tour guide operator, so she knew that this kind of even, changing, editing history of different historical sites. So the same thing can be applied to this industry if we don't have professionals that know about the tax code and the process and also opportunities that they can take advantage of to benefit our community. So I just think, if possible, maybe we can work together on some kind of, help us help you, right? I'm just surprised that this hasn't moved, about 25 years when we really needed it 25 years ago. So thank you for your time, and Chair, I yield.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Anyone else? Before I take my turn? Thank you. And again, good morning, Dave and Tina. Usually, I'm not speaking on behalf of the others, but usually when it comes to new appointments, I don't necessarily ask questions unless it's critical. And I know that this responsibility is like giving you the responsibility to overhaul some of the gray areas that we're having in order to to promote and market the Commonwealth, to diversify our ailing economy. It's not an easy job, and I applaud every single appointees that is appointed, that is committed and devoted to assist the Commonwealth volunteer, especially volunteers. And I appreciate accepting as volunteers some of our constituents don't completely understand when appointees are submitted, or they thought is where we're gonna get the money to pay. But I believe the only time that you guys gonna get compensated is when you had an official meeting. But it's not that big, based on what is allowable by law. So again, I appreciate commitment and devotion to a responsibility that is non-paying job. And I after hearing concern, questions, and respond from both of you, especially I was always thinking about, please make sure that we don't impose property tax in our Commonwealth, because that was brought back maybe 8 years ago, and I really oppose to that, because our people here, they're rich with land, but they're not rich with money, and once we impose that, I know that everybody will rather just return the land back, because they're not going to keep paying property tax, and they're not making anything out of that land. So unless they do farming, but nowadays not so many of our people doing farming, only a few. But again, I hope that one won't be brought up in any discussion about property tax. Maybe if investors willing to lease, or lease a huge property, maybe that can be. And I know that your job is to be business friendly and not so many tax, because I know that the function of incentive is to look into marketing, promotion, and I think look at those regulation permitting agencies to be more friendly for investors to proceed, because some of these investors that come, they just come and go, because for them time is money, and the delay of any permits will drive them away, and we lost a lot of potential investors that come in the past, because of permitting agency that are. And we're expecting that permitting agencies to be collaborating among each other for the betterment of our Commonwealth, or to have a good economic growth here in the island, because like you mentioned earlier, not so much to offer here. Even to our tourists, we still need to promote it in a better way, not only just to see the blue water, but also to beautify our island, because I keep repeating this. Even myself, traveling to another, Asian country and seeing beautiful flowers, beautiful trees, the way they groom them, I'm not good in photos, but I keep taking photos, because I wanna show my family and friends, and maybe that's another way of promoting the island. By tourists taking pictures of nice things to bring back home. And for me, it's a matter of collaboration among everyone. And I know that you'll be dealing with promotion and marketing, and even with taxes and stuff like that. And if BGRT and some areas on excess tax will be looked on, I want to make sure that with something to replace them, so that we don't have, because we're having problem now with collection. Lack of our main industry is tourism. So like I said, collaboration of other agency, even with SIDA. I know there's some incentive QC program that they have there to invite in new investors. I hope that everyone will, like I said, collaboration among every agency that requires an understanding as to, be on the same page to make it a better place and a friendly destination to do business. So again, we appreciate. We're looking. This is the kind of conversation that we or respond that we're looking is you guys are not after compensation, but rather to help the Commonwealth revive our ailing economy. And I don't have any question with your, credential. It's an awesome. Both of you have an awesome record that I have here, and I do believe that with your expertise, you can make a difference in our ailing economy. And and if this body give you the blessing, I need to convince everyone to be on one page. If we give you the blessing, I ask that if the others are, because I know there are nine of you guys. If everyone is in, my hope is for everyone to I know there will be a very heavy discussion. Some will not be agreeing with whatever, but I think at the end of the day, everyone will be in one page to make a better economy. And again, I thank you for both of you for your time and accepting such huge responsibility without any compensation other than official business that requires by law. Thank you. Members, anyone else? Recognize floor leader.
Thank you, Chairman. I think after reading portions of the current legislation, I know that the amendment was made particularly to change the name, but some of the requirements, such as quorum, such as the number of board members will be comprised in this body. With the consideration of the members, I think this is where we may have to either stall or ask for the consideration of either chamber, stipend chamber, or the other chamber that is overseen by Mr. Armani, to include private sector representatives from the 2nd and 1st senatorial district as a means to represent the private sector, so that in the event there aren't any funds to send a Rhoda or Tinian board member, the quorum is met to where there are still representatives of the other districts. Because I can see this as a problem in the sense that if 5 of the members make up the private sector, and if all those 5 members are doing business in Saipan, then you don't really have to be sending Rhoda and Tinian board members to your meetings, because you already have the quorum every time. And so that's one consideration I ask. Otherwise, prior to any confirmation or prior to confirming enough to establish a quorum, we should also consider the representation of the other districts, and that the decisions that you'll be making will essentially represent the entire Commonwealth, as opposed to just one district or Saipan. And so in moving forward, I know that there has been, or there was an invitation, but it was declined. But I think if we're having challenges in filling the public, the district representation, that the private sector representation could include members of the other chambers from Rota or Tinian. And so just something for consideration for the committee in moving forward with the rest of the nominees, in addition to the 4 that we're hearing, which is the 2 from this morning and then the other 2 later on this afternoon. So that's just something I wanted to bring up and share with the members, just so that, you know, we're all aware of what are some of the issues that may come from this new board that we're trying to establish. Thank you.
Thank you, Floor Leader, for that, and I highly support that, and I ask, because there's only one representative from Tinian and one from Rota, so I always say this: no island should be left behind. So please, if there is an official meeting, make sure that you know, Tinian and Rota is well represented, and I think that's fair enough, right? So again, thank you for your time. At this time, all comments are taken. Let the record reflect that written testimony will be included in the Senate Standing Committee recommendation report, along with oral testimonies will be forwarded before the full Senate members in consideration for confirmation or rejection. At this time, before we adjourn, I would like to extend on behalf of the members of the Standing Committee our sincere appreciation and gratitude to John Regis, the appointees, David Berger and Tina Azavan, and most especially the members of the general public for your participation and involvement during this important public hearing process. And we certainly hope that we continue this dialogue of communication between us, the elected officials, and the public to keep you abreast and informed of our current and future Senate hearings ahead that relates to public-based interests. This concludes this public hearing this morning. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion and was seconded. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. This public hearing this morning is officially adjourned.